This lobby is reserved for high-net-worth transactions, not for people who think a laundered $100 bill constitutes a banking relationship. You are occupying air that belongs to my premier clients. Move toward the exit, or I'll have you removed as a suspicious loiterer. Marcus Thorne didn't just speak. He spat the words with the clinical coldness of a man who measured human value by credit scores. He stood in the center of the classic private banking wing of the Gresham Trust, an environment of aggressive luxury. Floor-to-ceiling mahogany panels, brass rail teller stations, and a massive, tiered crystal chandelier that hummed with the sound of expensive air conditioning. Marcus stood with his hands tucked into his tailored pinstripe waistcoat, his palms empty, staring with absolute disdain at the woman seated in the leather wingback chair. The woman was Sloane Vane, a woman with deeply pigmented mahogany skin and a quiet authority that seemed to make the bank's reinforced vault look flimsy. She was dressed in a tailored charcoal gray wool cape over a silk turtleneck, new outfit. "I am here to discuss the liquidity of the Vane Trust accounts," Sloane said, her voice a low, melodic resonance that seemed to vibrate the glass partitions. "I was told the branch manager would be ready to facilitate a transfer." The Vane Trust sounds like something you read about in a novel while waiting for your shift to start. Marcus interrupted, his voice rising in a calculated escalation of disdain. "Look at this branch. Look at these people. Do you see anyone else here who looks like they have liquidity? You're a seating error in a gray cape. I don't care if you found a debit card in the street. You don't belong in the private wing. Security, get this woman out of my sight." The bank lobby didn't fall silent. It filled with the sharp, jagged laughter of the surrounding elite. A man in a tan cashmere overcoat leaned against a mahogany pillar, smirking at Sloane with high society disdain. "Honestly, Marcus," the man laughed, tapping a gold fountain pen against his palm, "she's very committed to the role. Liquidity. Maybe she's the new plumbing specialist here to check the pipes? Someone should tell her that Gresham Trust is for the architects of the economy, not the people who live on the fringes of it." The woman beside him joined in, pointing a manicured finger at Sloane's cape. "I'll give her $50 to go stand outside and hold my umbrella. She looks like she's built for the endurance. Go on, Marcus. Call the authorities before she tries to deposit her delusions in our vault." 12 people in the background were ostensibly minding their business, counting stacks of hundreds or signing trust documents, but 8 others were acting as active witnesses, leaning in to catch every second of the humiliation with judgmental grins. "Thanks for the support. We couldn't do this without you. Subscribe for free to help us keep bringing you more stories. Where are you watching from? Drop your city and country in the comments." Now, back to the story. Marcus, emboldened by the social jury, took the escalation to its peak. In a moment of raw, unposed physical aggression, he didn't just point. He snatched Sloane's leather portfolio from her lap and threw it across the marble floor, then reached into his pocket and dialed 911 on the desk phone, shouting into the receiver. "Yes, I have a suspicious intruder in the private wing," Marcus hissed, his face twisted in a mask of vicious mockery. "She's refusing to leave and making verbal threats. Send the police immediately to clear this blemish from my branch." The laughter in the bank was a physical weight. Sloane didn't cry. She didn't scream. She slowly stood up, smoothing the charcoal wool of her cape, her eyes meeting Marcus's with a coldness that caused the bank's artificial warmth to vanish. "You've spent your life thinking a title behind a mahogany desk makes you the gatekeeper of wealth?" Sloane whispered, the coldness in her tone causing the witnesses' laughter to die instantly. "But you forgot that a bank is just a vault of other people's money, and I am the one who owns the keys to the vault. You didn't just call the police, Marcus. You just assaulted the chairwoman of the Federal Banking Oversight Committee. And as of this second, I've decided to revoke your license and blacklist your banking future forever." The sirens wailing outside the Gresham Trust sounded like a funeral march for Marcus Thorne's career. As 2 police officers burst through the brass-framed doors, Marcus stood with his chest puffed out, pointing a trembling finger at Sloane Vane. "There she is," Marcus shouted, his voice cracking with a desperate, frantic energy. "She's the intruder. Arrest her for trespassing and attempted fraud." The officers moved toward Sloane, but they stopped dead as she reached into the inner pocket of her charcoal gray wool cape and produced a small, silver-embossed leather wallet. She didn't open it. She simply held it up. The lead officer took one look at the crest, his face turning the color of bone. He snapped into a rigid stance, his hand dropping from his holster. "Madam Chairwoman," the officer whispered, his voice echoing in the sudden, tomb-like silence of the lobby. We were told there was a violent intruder. The only violence here, officer, was the assault on my property and my person," Sloane said, her melodic resonance filling the classic mahogany-lined room. She gestured to her leather portfolio, lying splayed on the marble floor like a wounded bird. "Mr. Thorne here felt that my liquidity was a delusion. He decided to use your services as a weapon to protect his premier environment." The silence in the bank was now a physical vacuum. The man in the tan cashmere overcoat, the one who had mocked Sloane's endurance, tried to slide toward the exit, his face a mask of raw, irreversible regret. The woman who had offered $50 for Sloane to hold her umbrella suddenly looked like she wanted to melt into the floorboards. "Marcus," a new voice boomed. The regional director of Gresham Trust, Julian Sterling, emerged from the executive elevators, his eyes wide with horror. He ignored Marcus entirely and fell into a deep, subservient bow before Sloane. "Ms. Vane, please, tell me this is a misunderstanding. Tell me our branch manager hasn't just committed a systemic disaster." "He didn't just commit a disaster, Julian. He committed a crime," Sloane replied, her quiet authority silencing the room. "He used a 911 call to harass a woman he deemed unworthy of your mahogany desks. But since I am the chairwoman of the Oversight Committee, I am now conducting a mandatory integrity audit of this entire branch. Effective immediately."
"Marcus Thorne," Julian turned, his voice shaking with fury. "You are terminated for gross misconduct and breach of fiduciary duty. Security, escort him out. He is never to step foot in a Gresham property again. And send his name to the National Banking Registry with a red flag for harassment and regulatory endangerment." "No," Marcus gasped, falling against his mahogany desk. "I've worked my way up for 20 years. You can't blacklist me." "You didn't work your way up, Marcus," Sloane countered, her eyes like ice. "You were just a bully with a desk. By the time I'm done with the paperwork, you won't even be able to get a job as a teller at a grocery store. Your banking future is not just over, it's erased." The 8 witnesses who had been laughing moments ago were now being identified by the bank's security team. "And as for these architects of yours," Sloane continued, looking at the man in the cashmere coat, "I want a full review of their credit lines. If they think harassment is a social sport, they can find a different institution to fund their high-net-worth lives. I hear the street corner has plenty of air for them to breathe." As the police escorted a sobbing Marcus Thorne out of the building in handcuffs, not for Sloane's trespassing, but for filing a false police report and assault, the 12 people who had been minding their business watched in stony silence. The massive crystal chandelier above flickered, reflecting the total collapse of a man who thought his title made him a god. Sloane Vane picked up her portfolio, smoothed her charcoal cape and walked out. She didn't need a vault to prove her wealth. She had just liquidated a man's entire existence with a single look.